Tonight on the Grush Rush, are students protesting class projects and about to get violent? But first, straight out of Alaska, the heated congressional debate is melting the ice in the polar state. Stay tuned, you're watching the Grush Rush. Hi, I'm your host, Lauren Grush. Here to discuss our topic today is former Democratic community organizer from Southside Chicago, Anthony Noto.
Glad to be here with the Grush Rush.
And our Republican strategist and personal friend of Joe the Plumber, Ryan Martinez.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. All right, let's get right to it. I want to discuss the Senate race first. We all know this has been a very controversial race with the longtime Republican incumbent Ted Stevens. The senator has recently been convicted on 7 counts of essentially failing to report gifts received from the Alaskan pipeline company Vico and the remodeling of his home, which was being paid for by the CEO, Bill Allen. Obviously a real problem for someone going for the Senate seat on the 4th. So, has this shaken the people's faith in Ted Stevens?
I think so, Lauren. Polls showed a large swing of people in favor of the Democratic challenger, Mark Bedgick, since Mr. Stevens' trial started in July. The DNC has poured a lot of money into the state, and the Bedgick campaign has raised over $1.3 million as well. I think this is a great indicator of how well we will do on November 4th, despite the latest polls showing that Stevens has been closing the gap.
That's right, Lauren. Republicans and Alaskans alike are showing that they are proud to call Ted Stevens their senator. See, Alaskans remember that Senator Stevens was there fighting for the state of Alaska before it even was one. As the chairman of the Senate's Appropriations Committee, he brought about unprecedented federal dollars to almost every segment of the Alaskan economy. Alaskans realize this, and it has won him plenty of favor as a senator.
Yeah, I mean, that might be true, but let's remember that Ted Stevens is a king of pork barrel legislation, something that even John McCain disagrees with. I mean, his famous Bridge to Nowhere, which, by the way, cost the taxpayers $320 million, is just one example. I mean, when it comes down to it, this is a convicted felon, and I know that it's the last person the Alaskans want representing them. I mean, even as the famous political scientist Sean Theriault said, candidates run for Congress by running against Congress. I mean, how can he do this if he is proven to be one of the most corrupt Washington insiders?
All right. All this talk about Stevens. What about the Democratic opponent, Mark Bedgick?
Well, look, Mark Bedgick only has 2 positive things going for him. The energy of the Democrats this year and the fact that he was a decent mayor of Anchorage. Quality challenger, all right. But I think Ted Stevens has a record to show that he has served Alaska well for over 30 years, while Mark Bedgick has words. I think the biggest question voters will ask themselves is that does this typical tax and spend Democrat actually have the experience against the longest running Republican congressman in history? And can he bring about the prosperity that Senator Stevens has delivered for over 30 years?
Well, that's a question that will be answered on November 4th, but Ryan, do you really think Ted Stevens has a chance to win this? There are now FBI wiretaps that have Ted Stevens admitting to taking illegal money from Vetco and having no remorse for it. I mean, that's the type of thing that will be in voters' mind when they get in the voting booth.
Well, obviously this just created a lot of buzz about the Senate seat, but let's talk about something I haven't heard too much about, the at-large district House race with Don Young and Ethan Berkowitz.
Well, we all know the longtime Republican incumbent Don Young is going for his 18th term as a successful representative. Alaskans even call him their 3rd senator because he, like Stevens, has done so much for the state. Don is very well liked, and Democrats have no cheap shot scandals to pin him with. His recent vote against a $700 billion bailout plan is something that went down very well in Alaska, and they know they can trust him again.
Lauren, even the Alaskan Republican Party has not been fully united behind Don Young. I mean, Sarah Palin chose not to endorse him during the primaries, and many others have abandoned him, claiming that he has ties to sketchy deals just like Ted Stevens. The Democratic challenger and former State House Minority Leader Ethan Berkowitz is not only the right choice for this seat, but he's up by 8 points in the polls, because Alaskans, like Americans, see the empty promises that Republicans are giving once again.
I think Alaskans might be pairing Don Young with Ted Stevens, which is exactly what the Democrats want. Mr. Young's reputation for steering federal dollars to Alaska is about as legendary as that of Senator Stevens. Everyone does know that the two worked very hard for the infamous Bridge to Nowhere.
Exactly, Lauren. I mean, Don Young's nickname is Mr. Pork. And I also hope voters remember his comment on how Katrina victims can, quote, kiss his ear. I mean, Mr. Berkowitz has been a wildly successful mayor of Anchorage, and people see that. This is the year for Democratic challengers, and the rightful unpopularity of the GOP will, I predict, help Mr. Berkowitz pull out with an at-large district win.
Despite community organizer Noto's, I'm sure, very wise predictions, the positive record of a pro-Alaskan value of both incumbents is overwhelming, and both have proven to be very good to Alaska and their constituents. I think voters will see through the misunderstanding concerning VECO and keep both Ted Stevens and Don Young in their rightful seats this year.
All right, gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you for being on the show and providing your ridiculously biased opinions.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. Thank you.
Now for Lauren's last line. All right, now first off to the Senate race. Ted Stevens truly has done a lot for Alaska, and he is the long-term running incumbent. But I think that the scandals coupled with a bad Republican year are just not enough for him to pull through on this one. I'm predicting he's going to take about 46% of the vote. Some independents will take some of the slack on that, and then Mark Bejic will pull through with 52% of the vote. Now on to the House race. Many people think that Ted Stevens' trial will affect Don Young, but I don't think that is the case. I think people will be able to differentiate between the two voters. And yes, Ethan Berkowitz has proven to be a quality challenger, but I don't think he has raised near enough money to overcome Don Young on the 4th. Look for Young to get 54% of the vote on Election Day. But then again, that is just my opinion. That's the last line with Lauren. You've just been crushed. Thanks for watching.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.